Is a tomahawk worth it? That's what I want to know.
That is a very, very good question. I'm going to go right ahead and say no.
Right off the top, you're just blasting that out. No.
I personally do not think it is. I think there's a lot of hype. It costs a lot of money. There's a lot of like, oh my god, these are so cool on Instagram. I think you could spend your money elsewhere.
Agreed. This one was $80. It's 3 pounds, so this is on the top of the line here.
80?
80 is actually like pretty standard. It's actually like I've seen them up to like almost $200, depending on how thick they are, how big they are.
Who would pay that?
I know. I thought 80 was splurging.
80 is insane.
80 is insane. So, yeah, they're expensive, and realistically, let's be honest, we're paying for the bone here. That's 5 inches of Frenched bone, which just means that someone took a lot of time to get it to look beautiful like that. That's why they cost a lot.
You're also paying for the cachet to say that you bought a tomahawk, or you're having people over and you're like, we're having a tomahawk.
I looked online I did some research on this, even though we've been cooking tomahawk steaks for years, but I did some research on to be like, why are these like such a thing? Apparently they're supposed to be conversation inducing. I'm like, who is having a long conversation, even though we're having a long conversation about it now? Who is it, like, when you're bringing that to the table, expecting a conversation to arise from it?
I feel like food has gotten to be so annoying. Like,
agreed.
Back in the 90s when, like, hummus was a big new thing.
Remember when people didn't know what hummus was?
Yeah, and now it's like, where are we headed?
You gotta keep getting, beet hummus.
Yeah.
Beet hummus. Come on.
And so now that, in my opinion, that is what results from trying to come up with the next big thing. You got yourself a tomahawk, because people are trying to take food to that next level. They don't know where it goes, what they can do with it, and so they want something that's super cool. But I totally don't think it's worth it.
Yeah, like, is it cool to get one time and give it a go? Yes, okay? Even though that first time, I remember back to my first tomahawk, and I remember being like, it kind of feels wrong. I'm like, I know I'm just paying for the bone here, because the bone weighs a lot, and meat is priced by the weight. Mm-hmm. So I knew that I was mainly paying for the bone. So after that one time, I wouldn't say I would do this like all the time.
No. It's like the ultimate like male fantasy type cook. I hate to say that.
It is. It's like the guys that drive big trucks.
Oh, she went there. It totally is. It's got a big bone. That's all we need to say.
I thought you were going to say something else, and I was going to be like, we got to edit that out.
No, but that's totally it. And I hate to say that it's like a man thing, but it's like every time you see advertisements for like men at the grill, they got a big piece of meat. It's okay, like
you better really watch.
But it is. It's like, it's one of those things where like, how big can you get when it comes to like steaks and stuff? And dare I say also, it annoys me that people are like consuming almost an entire one themselves.
Okay, but go with me on this.
Okay.
This is what this video is about, okay? So this tomahawk was $80. Already mentioned it. It's around 3 pounds. I wanted to challenge myself and everyone else right now, because as we all know, food is priced through the roof right now. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to make this tomahawk steak and see how many meals I could get out of one tomahawk steak. Okay?
I love that.
So I made it in the way that we like to cook our tomahawk steaks, which is the reverse seared method. It's the easiest method. You can't screw it up. You're basically just cooking it low and slow until it comes up to temp. I cooked this one to 120. Then you're searing it hot and fast just to get those nice grill marks. Then I decided to take the meat off the bones, okay? And then portioned it out into 3 separate containers, because I wanted to make 3 separate dishes that equaled 4 separate portions for adults, okay? So you can see here, this is the first one.
That's a lot of portions. And I love the ratio. You don't need to be sitting there and just chomping on like bits of steak after bits of steak. I know people want to do that, but it's absolutely not necessary, and especially when something costs that much, I'd be eating like a pea-size amount and then moving on.
And you like savor it a little bit more. That's enough for each portion. You don't need a crazy amount of meat for each portion. You savor it, you enjoy it, okay?
I think a lot of people are tuning out right now.
I don't care.
Because a lot of people are like, yeah, but I want that much. You got your taters on the side.
Some people can eat that whole tomahawk in one go.
And yes, I was said in a judgmental tone.
We all heard it.
Well, I'm sorry, but no.
So in order to stretch it even further, you got to put that bone to use.
You would hope if you're spending that much, if someone is throwing that out, why would you even bother?
Agreed. So I made a stock out of basically what I call garbage stock. So basically, and I know that you do it too, honey.
I don't call it that though.
I call it garbage because it's basically vegetable scraps. Boiled them down with the bone in it, so it got all that delicious bone flavor. And then I made a beef and bean soup. So a great way to stretch meat is to add another protein with it. I think beef and beans go so good together.
Yes, you could do beef and bean, beef and barley, anything to stretch that out so you're not just focused again on the meat.
See, and again, 4 portions out of this soup.
And that's not a little portion, that's a giant bowl of soup.
Exactly, and I served a focaccia on the side because if you're wondering like, oh, is that enough? I don't personally think soup is a meal on its own.
No, I don't either.
I like to have a dunker on the side, so I made a focaccia on the side, and then you got yourself a meal.
That looks incredible.
It was so good, so delicious, and like the soup itself, other than the beef, it was made for probably pennies.
Now, I think a lot of people are probably too like being like, why would you put a tomahawk steak in a soup? You're wrecking it. It's medium rare. You don't need to.
So it was smoked and it was delicious in that soup.
Thank you. I would agree with you.
Okay, so we're up to 4 meals, 8 meals. Now we're coming up to our 12 meals. Okay.
Ooh.
So then I decided to do a beef burrito. Okay, a burrito is in Mexican food in general, there's a lot of beans in Mexican food.
And a lot of vegetables.
Yes, so that's why another reason I was like, we're gonna stretch this meat, we're gonna add some beans, and it's even that on its own, I personally feel like you don't need to add the beans because that was enough protein, but I decided to add the beans in there.
And texture-wise too. Like,
yes.
It's not just for protein. Like, I'm sure texture-wise you wanted some bean in there.
Of course, it's like basically this, I was making like a 1-pan refried beans.
Ooh.
Basically, with the beef in there. That's what we're doing here.
Yum. That looks delicious.
It was so good, and the smells coming off of that. You got your peppers, you got your onions.
No, I gotta tell you though, that's awesome. And I love that we're making so many different meals here, but for a lot less money, you could just buy a beef roast.
I agree. But
Like,
the challenge here was about specifically zeroing in on the tomahawk, but I agree. Is that necessary to do that? No, you could use a roast to do this. That's perfectly fine. Okay, so now we're going to start building the burrito. And again, there's so much going on in a burrito anyway. That's why I thought this would be a great meal to have to see how much we could stretch that tomahawk.
Exactly. And like, you don't really, if you're thinking that you're getting a large amount of beef when you go to get a burrito out, it's 90% lettuce.
Exactly.
They puff that thing up with lettuce. Rice.
I was personally,
which I'm not mad at.
I'm not mad at that either. I like a lot going on in my burrito. But when I bit into that, if anyone's gotten a burrito out before, you're right. You're biting in and you're like, where's the beef in there? I'm not getting the beef in there. This had a lot of beef in there. And that was still, again, from 1 tomahawk.
And these are also not a small tortilla. That's the extra large tortilla shell.
Those are the XLs.
Those are your big boys.
And that's what, okay, I'm like starting to drool just looking at that and seeing that. But they're big, but that burrito eats like a full meal.
And no one would ever guess that you're on day whatever of trying to stretch out one piece of meat.
I shocked myself in that.
That's huge. No one would say like, oh, you're trying to stretch it and you're eating light. Like, that's a regular.
No one's looking at that eating light.
No.
So that was 12 meals from 1 tomahawk. So if you break that down, $80 divided by 12, it's around $6 a portion. So that's still on the higher end of things. I'm not thinking that that's like budget food by any means.
No, and clearly when people buy tomahawks, it's not with the intention of it being a budget meal. It's normally for someone's anniversary, someone's birthday.
Yeah, it's a special occasion. Yeah, it's a fancy occasion type of thing.
Yeah.
But I would like to say, I don't know if I've ever seen anyone stretch a tomahawk this far.
I'm going to go ahead and say I haven't.
Yeah, I was very shocked at myself. I was satisfied from every single meal, the pasta, the burrito, the soup. So budget tomahawk, I don't think that those 2 words go together necessarily, but if you wanted to stretch it out, maybe there's some inspiration for you.
And I think also you should be rethinking, like, within yourself, what are the reasons why I want to buy a tomahawk? Mm-hmm. Like, is it because you drive a big truck? Is it because you're like, I want to impress people with this? Like, or should you just go one section over and get yourself a cheap roast that's on sale.
Agreed. At the end of the day, this was a fun challenge. Would I do it again?
Or never.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Or never mind. Okay, so say you don't want a roast and you actually just want a good steak. What about the old T-bone?
Yeah, I know. Bring back. Yeah, but the T-bone these days is through the roof as well.
Yeah, but it's no $80.
Even ground beef is through the roof.
Yeah, that's true too.
It's too much.
But if you want a good cut, there's cheaper cuts that are still going to be just as good that you're not paying $80 for. You do get a lot of meat with a tomahawk, though. It is.
You saw how much that was.
It is it's like a roast with a handle on it, for sure. But I don't know why you wouldn't just get the roast then.
And I think give it a try. Put it into something like this that's more satisfying. You still get the beef flavor. It's still delicious, and it's still somewhat budget friendly.
So you're saying don't be a stranger to adding beans and stuff to stretch it.
Stretch her out. At the end of the day, stretch her out. Okay, that's... Why does it always go there?
Sometimes I'm like, do you even think before you open your mouth?
As soon as I do, it's like a 1 second delay, and I'm like, oh no.